Hey everyone, and welcome to Maybe Muslim. I'm Mariam Heather, producer and host of the podcast, and in this episode, I am in conversation with Ayman Haq, a Delhi based researcher and writer. Through her years of growing up, working, and having family across different parts of the country, Ayman shares how language, caste, history, and local cultures have shaped her sense of identity and belonging. We discuss how caste manifests within Muslim communities, especially during arranged marriage discussions or in the choice of words used to address certain sections of the community. We also discuss the value of understanding the inner lives of Muslim women in order to truly address the needs of the community as a whole. Eamon also shares what it takes to have spaces that are caste conscious and compassionate towards every person and find ways to expand opportunities and a sense of belonging in more ways than one. This is a beautiful and enriching conversation, and I hope you give this a listen. Hey Aman, welcome to Maybe Muslim. It is such a joy to see you and such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Hi, Mariam. Same here. And I'm just going to repeat a compliment that I've given you just Abhi. I really do think that your podcast is really great and it's doing a lot about this idea that I have of the inner life of a community and Muslims in this context. And just like your conversations with different guests about their lives, their work, it's just creating that world. And we need a lot more of work that is like this. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, and I'm going to just say my thank you and gratitude to you again for this. I think when you shared the understanding of inner life of women and the women in Muslim communities, I remember listening to you, and I just felt like, yeah, I really need to speak with you. That was my first instant that um, finally, like it seems like on a stage in a public way, you were approaching this idea that unless and until we understand what does an inner life even mean, what does it comprise, how does it actually enable us to be more present and participatory in our community, we really can't really understand how to support the needs of a community
Yeah.
internally or externally. So we can talk about that at length, and I'm really excited to do that with you.
Yeah.
But before we go into that, I really want to kind of start with your early beginnings. You've lived and you have family in different parts of the country, and I learned a little about it through your public talk.
Yeah.
So I really want to know more, and if you can share how that has influenced the way you understand your identity as an Indian Muslim woman today, that would be great.
Right. So, the fact that I have grown up in a particular city and have family in different places in India, and also I've studied and worked in like different places, just encouraged me to deconstruct or do away with that category of Indian Muslim or Indian Muslim woman entirely, because I saw that it means so many different things in like different places. Um, and depending on where you go, the differences around language, around histories, around the things that are important to the people in the community there, around even some kind of like community rituals, because it's getting influenced by the immediate region. So it's just encouraged me to just look at what that category means very critically. And I grew up in Calcutta. So there, for example, at least when I was growing up, and even now, I guess in like comparative terms, um, it it was just more fluid. Like culture was more fluid in terms of, okay, there was no clear demarcation between what a Muslim person's culture is and what a Hindu Bengali person's culture is, because you will see that, and there are many Muslim Bengali people as well. Something that is like kind of neglected, like Bengal is not just Calcutta. There are many other districts in Bengal, and there are sizable populations of Muslims there as well, and their cultures are very fluid. I mean, there's a very fixed North Indian Urdu speaking kind of idea of who a Muslim person is. No thanks to Bollywood. So then that is what the fixed imagination is. But there are a lot of ways in which we are practicing our cultures. So Calcutta, mein, you would see that. women are wearing saris, they'll wear a bindi, they'll go to pujo pandals, they'll celebrate with their friends, not as a political statement or anything. It's just their idea ke we live in this place and this is our culture as well, and for fun, like we're hanging out with friends. But this is not so much the case in a place like, say, Ahmedabad, where I have family as well, where, because of the history and whatever has happened there and how that area has developed and the legal infrastructure there, all of that, the fault lines around religion are much more starker. So you will also see the expression of that identity also happening in a very specific way, where you can clearly differentiate who is a Muslim person and who is a Hindu person. So yeah, like it really depends on where you are coming from. And like I have my nana nani, who are my like my mom's parents. They live in Bhagalpur, so we used to go there for summer vacations. So the context there is also very different. There has been a history of violence there as well, and that has shaped my mom and how she conducts herself as a Muslim woman, and the kind of what she brings for herself and for her children and for her family. Like these are very different kind of manifestations. And then I studied in Pune, then I've been working in Delhi for a while now. So yeah, I just like I don't have any one definition of what it means to be like an Indian Muslim or an Indian Muslim woman.
Just you giving that background to your entire experience in itself is the answer. Because I personally felt like listening to you that actually you if I actually say, oh, between the ages of say 1 to 7 or 1 to 10, like what was your experience like, I think you'll have a different answer versus your teenage years versus your early 20s, or and I'm so glad that you are putting it that way, because not having that answer, you're not having a clear definition, is the reality for this fluidity of an identity that we've always carried.
Right. Yeah.
I remember like actually, and you very succinctly put it, like no thanks to Bollywood, that North Indian Urdu speaking identity is so hegemonized and sort of like created that people perceive that, I feel like a
Yeah.
large number of people will perceive that the way you are a Muslim, the first thing is like all those characters and sort of
Yeah.
narratives emerging through cinema. That's a label that I think most of us are just trying to like get away with.
Yeah, but also there are Muslims who kind of internalize that thing, and they also have a very fixed idea of, especially Urdu speaking Muslims from like the northern sort of UP, Bihar, wala belt.
Yeah, yeah.
They do have sometimes very directly, sometimes more subconsciously, idea ke they also otherize Muslims who speak other languages and are from other regions, who are not represented so much in the mainstream, whatever that may be, media, whatever discourse जो भी है. तो उनके दिमाग में भी वो थोड़ा सा रहता है कि अच्छा वो उर्दू नहीं बोलते हैं या समथिंग लाइक दैट. एंड दिल्ली में ऑफ कोर्स Delhi is like some kind of epicenter of a lot of things that are happening, at least in terms of media, because a lot of the news is very focused on what is happening here. तो वो एक perception बन जाता है कि अच्छा the most valid category of Muslims is the North Indian Urdu speaking ones. So yeah.
I agree, because even in my own interactions with extended members of my family, over the course of last few years, when I tell them that, oh, I've interacted with someone that I know from South India or from Kerala or from like or anywhere in Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, and it is quite a surprise to them as well. Like even within this North Indian Urdu speaking community, there is a sense of like, oh, this is the way Muslims categorically have been, because their circles are also very concentrated. Like they are also like bubbles in their own way.
Yeah, yeah,
So they rarely have interacted, or like they'll know of one wedding that happened of a Delhi family and a Chennai family, and you're like, oh, वहाँ से लड़की मिली, यहाँ से लड़का मिला, like that. But the idea that this vibrancy, and I can, whether we call it vibrancy or whether we call it fluidity, like is core of what that identity is. Like this is and we can obviously go into like how that then makes us navigate it when we go in different parts of the world, country or the world. Like you have lived and worked in different, like you, I believe you've studied in Pune.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, like you said, you're living in Delhi. You've it's an internalization, and I'm glad that you're putting it that way. That you kind of all, I mean, personally for me, I feel like I come from North India, so like that, Urdu speaking, I grew up with that, so there was a lot of like Bollywood getting influence with the place I was born in. And then I mean, I think it's taken me a while to unlearn all of that and really understand that um, we sit with the multiplicities of our experiences, and the more we gather it, the better conversations and more, I feel like, acceptance of each other we have.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm.
um, I also want to kind of go into how, you've talked about the geographies, but I also want to talk about like the way that the social hierarchies have existed, in the way yet you have this identity, and then there's caste also that has played its part in you navigating this identity. And can you share a bit about how has that also helped you understand, or rather like sort of decode what this identity means in the Indian context, in an Indian system?
Yeah. So again, what you said about, if you would have asked me this question in like a different time in my life, the answer would have been really different. And I mean, I said that I grew up in Calcutta. At the time, from what I have understood from my experiences, if you have a certain level of economic security in your life, which means that you are being able, like, you don't have insecurity around home, education, you are being able to go to a good school, khane ke around, and you are being able to sort of not do a caste ordained job, जो कई बार like communities are doing caste ordained jobs, but अगर आपको opportunity मिल गई, तो then you're doing something that is not caste ordained, so then that means कि your family also has certain kind of socioeconomic mobility. You don't transcend it, but there is some kind of blurring that happens. And Calcutta में at least your religion, if you are a Muslim, तो caste identity थोड़ा सा blur हो जाती है if you belong to a certain class bracket, and that is what happened with me as well. So, and there's not much discussion at home around these things as well, because Muslims में again, I mean, अभी बहुत काम हो गया है scholarship वाला काम. If you talk about, there have been many scholars like Imtiaz Ahmed and contemporary scholars like Shireen Azam. They're doing great work around caste and Muslims, but at in reality, in communities, even in marginalized caste communities, there is a certain kind of hesitance to admit कि हाँ ये वाला practice is done in between us as well. There is this thing कि Islam considers everyone equal, which even if it is true theoretically, a scriptural sense में, caste is being practiced in our communities as well. And I mean, if you look at the stats, estimates are around के 80 to 85% are marginalized caste Pasmanda Muslims, and inshallah caste census over the, then we'll get to know the actual stats as well. So if that is the reality, then obviously it is being practiced. Like ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता है कि that reality is there, but then वो practice नहीं हो रहा है. And वो probe करो अगर आप, even in my family sense, there are a lot of reasons and understandably why people have that hesitation. But वो है थोड़ा सा self gaslighting है कि नहीं 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 हमारे यहाँ तो नहीं होता है. And it gets expressed a lot when it comes to, of course, occupational realities and shadi ke time, arranged marriage especially, because I've witnessed situations जहाँ पे, there have been so I mean, Sayyids basically get very offended at the idea of marrying into a family that is marginalized caste. Yeah, so even अगर रिश्ता हो रहा है, I mean, these arranged marriage systems where कहीं से रिश्ता आ रहा है, रिश्ता भेजा जा रहा है, and then you start talking, and ऐसे तो सब लोग हैं कि हाँ सब लोग इक्वल हैं, हम लोग इस्लाम में सब लोग इक्वल हैं, and then वहाँ पे जाके ऐसे कॉन्वर्सेशंस होने लगते हैं कि हम लोग अपने घर की बेटी है, बेटी को कहीं भी भेज देंगे क्या, we have to be careful. So yeah, so this kind of thing. And then occupational realities में भी दिख रहा है कि most marginalized caste Muslims are doing their caste ordained jobs. And This I realized when I went out of Calcutta, when I started studying, when I started reading work by Baba Saheb, and then in my work I started seeing as a researcher these realities. Tab I realized that okay, these things are very real and they are real in my context as well. I mean, I come from a marginalized caste background, but these conversations are not happening because, of course, there is certain kind of stigma and certain thoughts ke theek hai, religion has allowed us to transcend it, we don't want to talk about it, etc. But the realities are ke it is there. And also, I mean, inside the community agar baat kare to it is also apparent in the ways sometimes even marginalized caste Muslims talk about uh, other communities that they don't relate to, or that belong to like um, working class communities and like very. So एक example अगर दे, जैसे जो दरगाह होते हैं ना, तो वहाँ पे यूजुअली वेरी कम्युनिटीज अक्रॉस caste and class go, but primarily it's very popular among marginalized caste Muslims, and who are also poor, who are working class as well. So communities like Muslim communities which don't believe in this, which believe in the idea of like a more purer Islam, कि जिसमें तो किताब में लिखा है कि यू कैन आस्क फॉर एनीथिंग दैट यू वांट डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम अल्लाह, यू डोंट नीड एन इंटरमीडियरी. एंड आई गेट द थ्रस्ट बिहाइंड इट के इंटरमीडियरीज कैन समटाइम्स एक्सप्लॉइट जो भी है. बट देन जस्ट द सोशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट इन विच यू आर, देर आर गोइंग टू बी चेंजेस, देर आर गोइंग टू बी इन्फ्लुएंसेस. Now, if we keep in mind that mostly the most marginalized caste and working class Muslims are going there, देन दो जो लहजा है बात करने का टुवर्ड्स देम कि बहुत एक सॉर्ट ऑफ डिस्गस्ट एंड वर्ड यूज है, जो वर्ड्स लाइक जाहिल, ये क्या, यू आर, there is a casteist sort of notion there. You are hiding behind your religion to practice caste in a sense, even when you are saying कि हमारे यहाँ नहीं है. And then I'm not saying कि these spaces should not be critically looked at all. जैसे कई बार ऐसे होता है कि mental health के around superstitions kind of get propagated a lot through दरगाहs के, if something is happening तो पीर या बाबा के पास ले जाते हैं to treat द पर्सन. बट अगर वो क्रिटिकल लेंस ला भी रहे हैं तो वी हैव टू कीप इन माइंड द लैक ऑफ एक्सेस टू से हेल्थ, mental health and physical health infrastructure. It has to be situated in a certain context and reality, rather than talking about it in sort of casteist sort of language के जाहिल हैं, कुछ नहीं हो सकता है, क्या क्या बिलीव करते हैं ये वो. It's very, I mean, so I know from direct and indirect examples के विद इन कम्युनिटी भी तो वो प्रैक्टिस है. बट यहाँ पे आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू से इवन आउटसाइड कम्युनिटी की अगर बात करें, लाइक इन टर्म्स ऑफ के द डिस्क्रिमिनेशन दैट मुस्लिम्स फेस इन अ स्ट्रक्चरल सेंस, दैट ऑल्सो हैज़ very like caste characteristics, that has a lot of caste characteristics, like even वो हाउसिंग एंड वो सारे जो एग्जांपल्स हैं जो बहुत स्ट्रक्चरल एग्जांपल्स है, उसके बाहर भी देखें अगर Muslims as a group are at the receiving end of stereotypes like wo they're very dirty, their areas are very dirty, yeah, they're evil. So this is some kind of otherization because Muslims as largely as a group are not very high on that hierarchy of caste. कि अगर हम लोग बोल रहे हैं 80 to 85 पसमंदा हैं, तो देन दे आर नॉट वेरी हाई. तो उसमें फिर क्या होता है कि यू आर देन सीन एज द अदर, लाइक अदर मार्जिनलाइज्ड हिंदू कास्ट्स वुड बी सीन एज वेल. तो ये स्टीरियोटाइप्स फिर उसी में बेस्ड हैं. And when someone is telling me that you don't look like other Muslims, they what they mean is that I embody a certain kind of upper caste majoritarian community aesthetic that they feel comfortable with, that they are not like threatened by, and they're imagining a very specific kind of Muslim who is probably lower caste, probably like working class, has religious markers. And फिर यहाँ पे ये हो रहा है कि they are also like defining Muslimness in relation to them. It's not an identity that is independent of them, and whatever Muslimness we might be practicing is independent of them. Like it is because of difference of levels in faith, devotion, many things come into place. And then अगर slurs भी देखें like slurs. They're very caste ordained. जैसे puncture वाला बोलते हैं लोग कसाई. They use these as slurs against the Muslim community. So these are also like caste ordained jobs. So I'm not saying it's just about caste. It is also about religion, especially in current times. There is a lot of, I mean, it's put at the forefront. But वो caste वाला element भी है जो like it gets pushed behind, and we get pushed as a community in like a cyclical manner in terms of religion. So our survival wala response or our pushback is also in that framework of religion. But I really sincerely feel like, there has to be like a widespread anti-caste consciousness amongst Muslims as well, which doesn't have to come at the expense of our religious identity. But then that consciousness has to be there, and rahi bhi hai. Pasmanda movement raha hai बिहार में, but then again उसका scope और उसका sort of regional influence was very limited. And like now, slowly we need to develop that consciousness outside of electoral politics. Scholarship and academic work is happening, but a consciousness on ground which is infused into our activism as well needs to be there. And I think incarceration ka agar looming threat nahi hota, and also a lot of people that are incarcerated already but are very good leaders, if that was not happening, if we were not being pushed into this cycle again and again to respond in this limited binary of Hindu Muslim, so this consciousness and this activism would have been underway in a much deeper and a much wider manner.
Thank you so much, Eman. I feel like I want to keep on listening to you, honestly. Like there's a lot of things that you're unpacking in just one response. Because caste consciousness is something that you very rightly said it needs to be understood, acknowledged, and kind of taken on across the community, like with not at the cost of like their way of associating with the religion, but rather really understanding that in the Indian subcontinent, in the historical understanding of the Indian subcontinent,
Right,
caste has been one of the most primary ways that the society has been formed. And
right.
so when Indian Islam kind of became and took the form, and as it keeps on taking the form and shape of what it is becoming, of course caste got adopted, you know
Yes. Right,
and in the if we talk about like within the community, I mean, I personally have seen it in a way that there is a sense of pride in
Hmm.
belonging to the Sayyid, and that sense of like, you're very right, specific, and this shows out the most starkly when marriage proposals are discussed.
Yes.
You kind of, and there's even this patriarchal element to it, like the
Yeah.
Sayyid line also continues from the father,
Yeah.
and it is one of the most, I think when I didn't have that vocabulary growing up, I felt like this was odd or this was off. And now when I
Right.
speak to people like you, I'm like, it's not isolated. A religion coming or a religious a group arriving in a different part of a world where it was not born, of course adopts it kind of
Yeah.
assimilates. And I think um, I'm just very I mean, I don't know. I'm so glad that we are having this conversation, because I personally think that more and more people, specifically of our generation, need to sit with their own groups wherever they
Right.
choose to do that, with their families, with their friends, with their colleagues, in public, in social, wherever they're choosing to have these conversations, to sit with that too.
Yeah.
The minority and the marginalized identity is also not homogenized. What are
Yes.
the privileges that we are carrying, and how has that, and use the word survival, because at some point the cyclical idea is like we're constantly in a state of survival.
Yeah.
And so the more we get to understand the world, the more words and the more access we have to recognizing how to continue that work internally as well.
Yes. Yes.
A survival cannot come at the cost of some other part of your own community's life and dignity and value.
Yeah, and it has clearly not worked, by the way. That kind of very homogenized idea of mobilization under the category of Muslim, it has not worked. So then it is like given that you should be looking into other ways of, again, deconstructing that identity and making more and more people feel that, there is something there that they can uh, rally behind, that is relevant to their lived real realities. So yeah.
Yeah, I think to just add to that, I also feel accepting that the multiplicity of whatever this was a mosaic of an identity we are carrying, it is only in our own benefit to have these conversations and learn from each other. Like I'm sitting
Yes.
in this room with you, learning and listening to you, and feeling like, okay, there is homework I need to do on my side, and that is the practice. That is the practice to continue channeling. If I truly want to understand how this identity impacts me, and how do I navigate with it in the
Right.
world.
Yeah.
And I I mean, I honestly don't have a question from this. I'm just sitting as you're sharing a lot of what you talked about, because these the slurs and these kinds of, like, I think if I really sit with the idea of like how casteist these slurs are, also it's also that, I mean, I speak from my own interactions in the past where I have seen these slurs or casteist remarks being passed from members of the Muslim community towards other members of the Muslim community.
Yes. True. Yes. And that's
And
of caste. वो
yeah,
मानेंगे, but it is caste.
हाँ, वो मानेंगे नहीं। वो एंड लाइक यू सेड कि वो कि इस्लाम में कास्ट नहीं है। हाँ, आई मीन
Hmm.
स्क्रिप्चरली ठीक है, नहीं है, बट प्रैक्टिस में तो है ना। लाइक
Yeah, yeah,
लेट्स
exactly. Like, one of my other favorites is, हाँ, लेकिन अल्लाह ने कहा है कि किसी और को तो जज नहीं कर सकते, बस सो वी शुडंट से इट लाइक दैट। तो बोल भी रहे हैं और फिर सब दूसरी चीज़ें भी बोल रहे हैं कि इस्लाम में इक्वल है, जज नहीं करना है। बट एट द सेम टाइम ये सब भी साइड में चल रहा है। ये सारे डिस्कोर्सेज एंड दीज प्रैक्टिसेस एंड दीज स्लर्स
आई
जो
थिंक
यूज़ करते हैं।
it's also because again you use that word, like I'm glad you mentioned that, like there's a sense of like that gaslighting
Yeah,
कि
yeah,
वो अपने आप को ही उल्टा, लाइक इट्स पता नहीं कौन सी वो दिमाग में, देयर इज अ स्क्रिप्ट रनिंग कि
yeah,
you feel it, like, again, like I said, I think my own experience was like, in my when I was younger, I didn't have the vocabulary, but you feel that something is off.
yeah,
This person you shouldn't create this sort of demarcation of a Sayyid, non-Sayyid. You shouldn't make the other person feel strange, like, but at the same time you're like, but we are like, it's we believe in an egalitarian society, we believe in
yes.
the idea of
Hmm.
justice, and everyone has equal rights, and like, but it's not translating, kuch off hai.
Yeah, yeah.
वो आई थिंक दैट गैसलाइटिंग हैज आल्सो कंटिन्यूड, लाइक इन वो अपने आप को ही बताते रहते हैं कि पर ऐसा तो नहीं था, पर इस्लाम में तो ऐसा नहीं है, पर हम तो इसमें नहीं मानते। अरे नहीं मानते, बट प्रैक्टिस तो करते हो ना, लाइक व्हाट
That
इज दिस?
contradiction is lost on most people. Like that contradiction is not internalized or reflected upon at all.
Yeah, you're right. I've had several conversations with members of my, not just like extended family but otherwise as well, where I'm like, I don't know where to start it from, because their conversations are still very much like operate under the umbrella of certain things are fixed.
Hmm.
Okay, in Muslims or within Muslims, like, there is a certain way that marriages should happen. There's a certain way that you should look at. Like you said, there's a sense of like this North India Urdu thing. I think the way I've seen it is that ये थोड़ा वो होगा कि it helped create more educational opportunities for Muslims. And there were these leaders and icons like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and people like that. And I'm like, yeah, sure, we can appreciate the contribution and the way they created infrastructure for education of Muslims.
Hmm. Hmm.
At
Hmm.
the same time, it has been a long time since that happened.
Right.
So what, I'm sure if those icons have their value, and it is on their, perhaps it is on sort of their, you can imagine, say, in those institutions itself, and outside, as our generations are understanding the concept of caste and the concept of religious identity, and how that intermingles with social realities, more work needs to be done. So we
Yeah.
can't simply rely on work done like 75 to 100 years ago and say, okay, this is how things are best.
And
Like,
also, you
no.
know, I I'm glad that you mentioned Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. I That's the name, right? Mm, उनकी हिस्ट्री में भी सो आई रेड दिस अ लॉन्ग टाइम अगो, सो इसका फैक्ट चेक करना पड़ेगा, बट आई रिमेंबर रीडिंग समथिंग अराउंड कि उन्होंने भी ऐसा कुछ कहा था कि जुलाहज जो एज अ कम्युनिटी हैं उनको एजुकेशन नहीं देना चाहिए, या उनको, एंड जुलाहा इज अ कास्ट सॉर्ट ऑफ
Hmm.
आइडेंटिटी फॉर मुस्लिम्स, कि वो उनको बाहर रखना चाहिए इस चीज़ के. So even as he is doing institutional building, which has been incredible for Muslims in this country in terms of education, rightly as you said, unki identity is influencing his sort of ideas around who gets to have an education, who and who doesn't, along caste lines as well. तो वो भी, and I feel like a lot of our historical icons, I understand कि there's this idea कि इतने फ्यू हैं, एंड ऑलरेडी अगर उनको क्रिटिकली एनालाइज करने लगेंगे तो देन आई मीन व्हाट विल बी लेफ्ट. बट आई सी इट वेरी डिफरेंटली एज कि द मोर यू reckon with the history of your community and your icons and whoever they are, you can still acknowledge the work that they have done in community building, in institution building, and still be critical about it, so that your consciousness around your identity has more depth. एंड आगे जब आप जो भी करते हो, या कोई भी मूवमेंट हो या इंस्टीट्यूशनल बिल्डिंग हो, कुछ भी, दैट कैन अकाउंट फॉर द मिस्टेक्स दैट हैव बीन डन अर्लियर. तो या आई मीन यू आर वेरी राइट कि ये सारा कुछ हुआ है, but then also, yeah, we need to have discussions that are deeper, that are more analytical, and that look at these things more critically.
Yeah, I think if I put it that in a very simple way, or
Mm.
rather like the way I look at it is that just because I'm critically looking at a past figure doesn't necessarily mean I'm completely canceling them. Like
Yes, yes,
I'm not
that's
in a, I'm not operating from a cancel culture here.
yes,
I can look at the person and the work they have contributed, and still be open to the fact that yeah, and there were certain things that were problematic or rather needed some more accountability or needed more deflection, like depth, like you said. And then it just opens pathways to know, okay, so if I want to continue doing something like this, or if anyone in the, like you said, like anyone who wants to do institutional building, community building, then they can learn from that and build that. Like I'm
yes,
sure we don't like that's the problem I feel sometimes, is that there is a lot of anxiety around the idea that, oh, we can't point a finger at somebody who did so much for us, and I'm like,
yes.
it's fine, we're not canceling them, we're
Yeah,
not
we're
suddenly
not
going to
answering.
like,
We're just deepening the discussion, and that's what I keep coming at. के ऐसे feeling एक general anxiety कि we've been pushed in the corner, and that
mm,
combined with our inner sort of discomfort around admitting that we are not, pure Muslims, so to say, that are practicing Islam perfectly, and our sociological realities are reflecting in our
mm,
practice. uh, all of this in a mix just makes us, cling to certain kinds of truths and ideas that are a little divorced from reality. And I think incorporating these ideas into our work, writing, activism, whatever it may be, would make us richer and would make our movement stronger as well. I don't think it'll dilute it, but yeah, people, it's hard to make people see that. बहुत अटैक की तरह फील होता है.
I mean, because I mean, we can say simply that वो because survival में the mind is
Yes.
like in that survival कि अगर we take away a personality like, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, then what are we left with? And I think that's where we can sit with that. It it's always going to be it's not canceling something. It's not
Yes.
ending the legacy of some contributor who actually did a lot. It's
Yeah, yeah.
deepening that understanding of how does that contribution now create more room for
Yep.
bigger contribution for that matter.
Yeah.
um, and speaking of the sort of like this lack of depth or nuanced conversation, I was really struck by another thing that you had mentioned in your MHI panel, where you were presenting your paper on the mental health of visibly Muslim women. and you put visibly in quotes. And I was personally so glad you did that, because that is the binary that I feel like, unfortunately,
Hmm.
so many of us are caught in, where you're like, oh, you don't look like a Muslim woman, and then you're like, oh my God, like now we thought like I'll have to give some like historiography of my story. Because I mean, the idea of, if we are only on, so if we are still unfortunately stuck on like don't look like a
Hmm.
Muslim woman, तो डेप्थ तो पता नहीं कौन से जमाने में आएगी.
Ha ha ha. Right. And we are forced to respond in that binary as well. Because, I mean, of course, visibly Muslim बोल रहे हैं तो then um, like it becomes about ke again you are focusing your attention on someone who is looking like a Muslim. And I remember when I had worked on that, I had the Karnataka ka jo hijab ban hai fresh in my mind. And I realized that afterwards, when I was thinking about it, I realized that I might be reinforcing some kind of binary myself by talking about it in those terms. Even though I'm criticizing that thing कि वो binaries exist नहीं करती हैं कि एक visible Muslim है and एक non-visible Muslim है. लेकिन वही है, like it's so hard to escape that binary. And also again that idea of survival. जो सबसे visibly Muslim हैं, they are the ones who are being pushed into the corner the most. I remember just yesterday reading about this girl from Kerala who had to transfer schools because her school was causing her mental distress in terms of कि you cannot wear the hijab, and class 8 की बच्ची है वो, and the education minister intervened and still they refused to budge. And the father said that we are transferring schools because my child is going through like mental distress. So I'm just like, I want to have all of these conversations that go beyond these binaries, but constantly this binary is pushed on us. And the experience of not being visibly Muslim is not a great one, by the way. Like, even in my own sort of work, research work, just my field work hota hai and all of that. So I'll just give you one example. So if you are not visibly Muslim, so to say, like you don't carry markers, it's easier to fit in. There's a higher level of acceptability because, again, what I referred to in earlier, people are not feeling threatened by you or uncomfortable with you. But also, as a researcher, for example, when I'm going to the field, and current times, may especially current times, say, I mean, even post like 2019 and the years that consecutive years, I had gone to a field once, and I'm not going to go into too many specificities, but there was this group facilitation session with a group of women. And group facilitation sessions, like, they build camaraderie, and there's conversations about post the session as well. uh, so I remember one woman had come up to me, and she definitely assumed that I'm not a Muslim because I don't carry any markers. And she started talking about how she is in this particular region or state, but she's not from here. She's actually from Ahmedabad, and she had to move from there because Muslims are such a nuisance there. They're so violent and all of that. And in that moment, I remember feeling such an internal panic because I was like, there were many thoughts in my mind. Okay, am I deceiving her by not making my Muslim identity very, like, obvious? And then, of course, not. But then that's the feeling that is going on in your head. Then also, okay, should I tell her? If I tell her, what would the reaction be? Like, what do I do? Like, how do I deal with this situation? I was thinking about my family in Ahmedabad and what they have gone through as well. And I just completely froze in that moment. And I had to pretend, or sort of, that, I'm not getting affected by anything. And I had to move the conversation in a different direction. But then after that, for a while, I was very anxious and like very upset by this incident. And just it's just a difficult experience. I mean, all aspects of your work get affected by this, the more polarized the environment around you is. And just, even though it's easier to fit in because of not carrying any markers, it also makes people forget or assume that you're not a Muslim, because वो imagination है ही नहीं कि a Muslim woman researcher would come and I mean वो दिल्ली से है and all that है तो वो एक है but it's just so precarious. आई डोंट आई मीन हो सकता है कि हम बताए होते तो कुछ नहीं होता उसमें बट योर नर्वस सिस्टम रियली पैनिक्स कि अब क्या करें इस सिचुएशन में and then you just are immediately reminded of your social location, because you're not thinking about it, you're just going about your life, doing your work, and suddenly you're reminded कि हाँ दुनिया में ये context है, like don't forget, and you fall in a particular sort of, and even along the lines of caste I've heard कि field में people are like for caste marginalized Muslim communities के उस एरिया में नहीं जाएंगे, वो लोग बहुत गंदे हैं, उनके घर में पानी नहीं पीना है, उन लोग तो ऐसे रहते हैं, you just remind मतलब you are, and if you are from one of these caste communities but you happen to be in the office because आपको opportunity मिली education की and like certain kind of mobility, upwards mobility हो गई है, but you're still from that identity and you're listening to these things around you, it and then there's a certain kind of arrogance also, okay, if you end up sharing these things the response often is okay, but at least you have class privilege, you're sitting in this office and like why is this bothering you, how is this connected to you, you're not in that environment anymore, which is like a very superficial analysis of like how something should impact you. So it's just a very difficult sort of, we are not the ones who are pushing our identity wherever we are going, it's being pushed upon us, this idea. And also like I want to extend this criticism to, again coming back to the whole hijab thing, and I keep coming back to it because it's so prevalent nowadays, it's not a forgotten thing, right, कि एक बार हुआ and then it keeps happening, वो ban एक जगह हुआ उसका repercussions and ripples happened everywhere, and even other state governments के intervention के साथ it's not getting solved. I criticize good faith actors like, say, upper caste liberal feminists from the majoritarian community, because you are supposed to do better. And my ask is not कि हमारे हमें represent करो अपने movement में, because I am beyond that, I don't think we need that, like we have our own writers, you have had so many people on your podcast, we are developing our own theories, but the thing is कि they still have the limelight, they are the ones who are building or shaping public opinion, public consensus by the discourse that they are having. So Karnataka hijab ban ke baad, if you are discussing whether hijab is a choice or not, कि do women wear hijab out of choice, is there, एक तो there's no understanding, again, that inner life, a caste society mein only some people get to have like a rich inner life and reasons for what they're doing, the rest of us are just doing things without any context, ठीक है, our choices are not, ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता है कि we believe in Allah and it's like in our choices are influenced by that, yeah, there are degrees कि कोई फैमिली है जिसमें शायद फोर्स कर भी रहे हो, कोई फैमिली है जिसमें नहीं कर रहे हो, कोई
Yeah.
फैमिली है जिसमें बोल रहे हो कि क्यों पहनना है, लेकिन द गर्ल इज लाइक नहीं हमको पहनना है बिकॉज आई फाउंड समथिंग इन माई फेथ, नो रिकग्निशन ऑफ दैट. सो देन द डिफॉल्ट अजम्पशन इज कि फोर्स किया ही होगा, that is the default assumption, and then you are having discussions about ke, then you are trying to deal with that reality, you're struggling with that reality where you're finding Muslim women and you're trying to prove कि actually कहीं कहीं पे choice होता भी है, and you're getting them to like talk about it and you're trying to say कि नहीं actually ये नहीं होना चाहिए क्योंकि किसी किसी केस में हिजाब choice है, but according to me that discourse is really irrelevant because it's a simple question, अगर हिजाब choice नहीं है, अगर if she's being forced by the family, do you support her education rights being taken away? If you say yes, then you are the problem. And if you say no, then you are having the wrong discussion. And critiquing this is important because, again, these discussions, these narratives are shaping public consensus. It is what is shaping people's ideas of ke अरे, and most people don't engage in depth with these things. वो जो इंटरनेट पे है, जो लोग बोल रहे हैं, वो internalize करते हैं. So then it becomes like हाँ कहीं पे तो हिजाब में प्रॉब्लम है, एंड अगर उनके घर में फोर्स हो रहा है तो फिर तो प्रॉब्लम है, तो यहाँ पे तो हमें देखना पड़ेगा, लाइक कम्प्लेक्सिटी इज नॉट टुवर्ड्स द कम्युनिटी, कम्प्लेक्सिटी इज ग्रांटेड टू द स्टेट कि हाँ वो ये कर रहे हैं तो किसी तरह के रीजन से कर रहे होंगे, which is like so absurd. And then उसी ईयर में like chronologically I think later in the year ईरान के protests हुए थे, and and for Mahsa Imani, I think her name was,
My
she,
family, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mahsa Amini, she got very tragically killed. So instead of drawing the link of in like violation of bodily autonomy, which is happening in India and in Iran as well, the conclusion was that hijab is oppressive. So then Indian Muslims are doing something wrong because they are defending hijab. If this is the level of critical analysis that we are bringing to our discussions, then what is going to happen? And ye critique, by the way, like I'm not, I want to clarify this that I'm not doing for Muslim women. Agar koi, if there are Muslim women who have been forced into wearing the hijab, or if they are struggling with their family or their faith, they should be talking about their experiences. Ye limit, I don't want to put on women from our community. But I am criticizing liberal upper caste feminists because they are not engaging with enough depth. And kai bar when we do this critique, we are accused of doing, like identity politics. Ke you are critiquing because you are a Muslim and you don't want to be critical towards your own community. आप criticize कर रहे हो because आपके अंदर वो objectivity नहीं है. But the thing is कि that is a rubbish accusation because India जैसी country में our identities are very directly linked to our social realities and our material realities. And also, by the way, their choices and their identities also have not transcended this. उनको लगता है कि बिकॉज वो मोबिलिटी है, बिकॉज वो क्लास कास्ट प्रिविलेज है, तो दे हैव ट्रांसेंडेड. दे हैव नॉट. देयर चॉइसेस, द वे दे चूज टू टॉक टू अस, द वे दे लेक्चर अस, इट इज ऑल अ रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ देयर कास्ट एंड क्लास प्रिविलेज. बट वो समझ नहीं आता है. एंड वेन यू कंटिन्यूसली हैव these सर्कुलर डिस्कशंस, every time this happens, instead of focusing on what is the matter at hand, you will have these circular discussions around it. It is doing a lot of harm टू अस. एंड देन फिर ये बात आ जाती है कि मतलब इसीलिए like one of the, I really believe that one of the reasons why the feminist movement right now is, there is no kind of traditional organizing or movement as such नहीं है. Digital activism बहुत है but on ground movement नहीं है. Theory building is also like at a, there are a lot of reasons for this, including how the state and everything has been changing. But this is also one of the reasons, because you refuse to be led by feminists who are Muslim, who are Ambedkarite, who are from marginalized caste. क्योंकि हम लोग कर रहे हैं बट हम लोग को, हमारे लिए वो स्पेस नहीं है कि हम लोग ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इन चीज़ों को मेन स्ट्रीम में पुश करें. एंड इंशाल्लाह इन द फ्यूचर Ambedkarite and Muslim feminism. I mean, I don't think it's a different kind of feminism, but एक जो consciousness है that builds from that experience, and anti-caste feminism, that is going to be the mainstream, and then there will be a movement and it will be directly linked to like material reality rather than having discussions for the sake of discussions. का क्या point है, like considering how the context is of our country. Like I don't, there's this idea of liberal freedom, कि you can have any discussion at any point and that is the mark of freedom. But that's not like what is that? And that freedom is not available to most of us. Most of us, if we say something, we'll be like some kind of repercussion we are going to face. तो वो एक बचा हुआ freedom that you feel that you have, so you're defending it and you're throwing all of us under the bus because of it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I think when you were saying about the fact that the upper caste liberal feminism movement and the feminist, they have a they critique the Muslims for not being objective. I think what I've also gathered is that there is a sense of you've already arrived at a decision. Like
Yeah.
in in your mind, you already know have a point.
Yeah.
And so when you are already stuck to your point, then कोई तुम्हें कुछ भी बोले, then you are not being like you are being like in your own head ना. You are saying कि
Exactly.
भाई मेरा ये belief है कि हिजाब is a problem.
Hmm.
अब उसके ऊपर तुम कोई भी आके नुआंस लगाओ, फंडामेंटली तो हिजाब इज अ प्रॉब्लम.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, matlab, can you please contextualize this? Like, because
Yes.
it is very important to sit, like you said, with the social and the material realities of millions of Muslim women, not just in India but everywhere. You
Yeah.
know, the idea of wearing or not wearing a religious marker that is on a gender, on a marginalized gender, on a marginalized community, comes with a lot of questions and answers that the person is already dealing with internally.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
तुम सुनो तो, तुम्हारा काम सुनना है. Like, I think at this is something that we can talk for hours about it. Like, for most of these, what they consider to be like liberal upper caste places, it is to sit and listen.
Yes, they
And
refuse to
then
be led by us. Like they want to be the leaders. So ना अगर बोले आजकल there is more political correctness around these things, but you can see the like the itch to just like no, but I think this is not right. वो वाला पूरा एकदम वो
तुम्हारा
assumption.
काम नहीं है अभी वो, like, I think the value placed in being a very good listener
Hmm.
and keeper of that conversation is needs to be understood as valuable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That if you are in a position of privilege, inherent privilege, or rather even say relative privilege, that you've accumulated privilege over a period of time, you will have a chance to be sitting in a room where only you'll get to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that itself is a privilege.
Yeah.
uh, wo, that needs, again, I don't know how to convey that or how to make it. And I mean, in with the I've seen that happen. Like, there is a sense of like, oh, if you've read a decent amount of scholarship, you know enough. I'm like, great, you know enough, but live reality or lived experiences have the value of that
Yeah.
is not, you can't isolate it.
Yeah, that only richens the context. And this is the arrogance or this, this idea that they have achieved some kind of transcendental objectivity because they have read so much. This is what I'm talking about, because you are assuming that you have a higher level of like intellectual functioning than these people that you are lecturing, that they might not have. And it is crucial to unpack what is going on behind this, because otherwise, again, the criticism also like ends up in a binary. कि अरे यू आर नॉट रिप्रेजेंटिंग अस एंड व्हाट वी आर सेइंग एंड यू वो करना ही नहीं है, आप अपना सही करो. एंड इवन इफ वी रन विद दैट नैरेटिव, ठीक है, कि लेट्स अज्यूम कि एक हाइपोथेटिकल रियलिटी में all Muslim women have been forced to wear a hijab, ठीक है, प्योरली हाइपोथेटिकल, दिस इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू रियलिटी एट ऑल. बट अगर मान लेते हैं, तब भी द नेचर ऑफ दैट एक्टिविज्म दैट वुड टेक टुवर्ड्स दिस hypothetical reality is कि to expand someone's agency or someone's freedom, कि वो choices ले सके that are at odds with the thing that is being forced upon them. They need to have space in the world to move away from their community, to move away from their world and experience other worlds. तो उसमें भी the activism should be focused on creating safety in institutions, in housing, in education. आप जिस भी एंगल से देखो ना, जिस भी एंगल से देखो, अगर उनके बायस से भी जाओ, द फोकस ऑन हिजाब स्टिल डजंट मेक सेंस. एनी एंगल से भी डजंट, बिकॉज उस सिचुएशन में भी इफ यू आर सेइंग कि वो फ्रीडम को अचीव करने का रास्ता ये है कि यू टेक ऑफ योर हिजाब, then I would say your reading and whatever you are claiming has not taught you anything. ठीक है, बिकॉज इतना इंडिविजुअलिस्टिक आइडिया ऑफ फ्रीडम दैट इज डिवोर्स्ड फ्रॉम योर रियलिटी कंप्लीटली, आई इट डजंट मेक सेंस टू मी. दे आर
Yeah.
ऑल्सो मेकिंग कॉम्प्रोमाइज चॉइसेस ऑल along the lines of gender, क्योंकि वो marginalization है. upper caste communities में भी women are facing marginalization in terms of gender, तो they are making compromise choices as well. बट उसके साथ कोई reckoning नहीं है. The focus is on us so that you can have some kind of intellectual smugness कि actually we are. And I want to reiterate, our society is not free. Muslim women ho, Muslim communities, या non-Muslim, caste privilege ho, whatever it is a deeply unfree society. Look at statistics around anything: workforce
Yeah.
participation of women, marriages, arranged marriages, 95% above. Like what is that? Is that a reflection of a free society? And like all of कुछ भी देख लो again, your conduct is very divorced from the reality that all of these things are telling us about. तो देन एंड अभी तो सिचुएशन ऐसी हो गई है कि इवन पीपल विद कास्ट क्लास प्रिविलेज आर फीलिंग द हीट ऑफ लाइक यू नो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, तो एकदम फोर्स्ड टू रेकन ऐसा हो गया है. बट अदरवाइज द बिहेवियर इज एज इफ कि यू नो हम ही we are like, I don't know, some aliens, and they are leading an existence that is free and independent of all of these restrictions and these social norms or whatever it is.
As you were sharing about these the divorce between the reality and how they look at freedom, also reminded me of how you had connected agency with inner life. That
Yeah,
I mean, I can say in the context of a Muslim woman, but if we want, we can talk about like largely as a woman in a society that has so many, like it's an unfree society. Let's just put it that way.
yeah,
That agency can only be personally, like on an individual level. That agency, you can't tell me what my agency feels like and looks like to me.
yes,
Agency, I will decide ki does getting myself a place outside of the community or city I've grown up in, does that give me agency? Does
yes,
wearing a hijab give me agency? Does
yeah.
owning a car give me agency? Does having a job that takes me to different parts of the different locations gives me agency? Like my lived experience and can actually enlighten my agency, my choices.
Yeah,
और वो द मोमेंट वो इनर लाइफ का क्यूरियोसिटी खत्म हो गया, लाइक और आधा है ही नहीं, कि भाई तुमने तो ऑब्जेक्टिवली देख लिया ना उनको कि विजिबल और नॉन विजिबल. तो यू इनविजिबलाइज दैट इनर लाइफ एज वेल बिकॉज इट्स नॉट पार्ट ऑफ द कॉन्वर्जेशन.
yeah. वही तो assumption again, like what I said earlier, caste society mein there's a hierarchy. Some people get to have like rich inner lives and they're making choices in like because of very subjective and nuanced reasons, and the rest of us are just making choices in an abyss and we don't understand anything and we are just making choices because religion told us so, yeah, our family told us so, whatever. Like we are not thinking. There is nothing going on inside. And फिर like this reminds me, like you talked about that and I had talked about this on the MHI panel as well. Okay, because of this, there is real life harm. It's not just at the level of discourse. Like even अगर mental health के context में देखें, I'll just give this example of Ahmedabad that I had given at the panel as well. So my husband's family is from Ahmedabad, and uh, I had given the example of education, like this widespread belief that Muslims don't believe in education and they don't prioritize education. And I talked about how Ahmedabad mein the religious fault lines are very like stark. तो उसमें if we imagine a hypothetical example where someone is doing an intervention around education and they place the school in an area that is like a little farther away from the Muslim ghetto, and there are very clear lines on which area is Muslim and which is not. So, and अगर उसमें बच्चे नहीं आते हैं, तो then the assumption will be कि again देखो हमने try किया, but Muslims only don't value education. They just want to be in their own community. They don't, etc., etc. But I have been around conversations where the history of violence of that state, what has happened, has shaped the psyche so much that even years after the violence, people are making decisions that are influenced by that trauma. And then the decision is like, okay, if something were to happen, if something were to break out, would we safely be able to bring our child back home in time before harm reaches them? If if you say that lived experience is nonsense and like there are pure hard facts and reality and we don't need to account for lived experience when we are deciding on policy and this and that, you are not going to know that this is the case, and then your policy or whatever intervention it is going to fail, and then you are going to blame the community. I'm giving a very specific example, but this can be applied across many different contexts. वो and clinical context, maybe there is barely any research of how violence, like in different parts of the country, how it has affected the community, how it influences their day-to-day decisions, because trauma doesn't like end when it at the point that it happens. It carries over generationally. It carries over into the decisions that you make around everything. It shrinks your life. It shrinks the options that you have. Like, suddenly you are not even considering certain things to be possible for you, and then you are making choices that make sense to you in that shrunken reality. अगर उसका acknowledgement नहीं है, या clinical research नहीं है, या any kind of like discussion around that, it is a clear indication that you don't think we have an inner life. You don't think violence or all of this can affect us. You will talk about like such a committee report, and जो official reports हैं जिनको भी आए हुए इतना टाइम हो गया है, कि उसमें लिखा था कि ये है, ये है. So at best we are victims, and at worst we are like bigots with a hive mind. So we have to exist in these two binaries. There's no कि अरे, and our stories and everything will also be in liberal spaces, be fit in between these categories, where our stories has to kind of fit into the mold of these categories. So then it becomes like, you know there's a lot of invisibilization, not just at the structural level, but at in these sort of spaces as well. And I just, if you are not acknowledging this, if you are not recognizing this, then जितनी भी reports आप निकाल लो या जितना भी बात करो, nothing is going to change for real. Like, you cannot help the communities if you don't, very deeply internalize that we have an inner life as well, and sometimes it'll not be what you deem acceptable. It's not always going to be according to that definition. So yeah, I mean, and I'm still developing that paper or that article, because there's just so much to say in that, and there's so much to like deal with, and there is a little bit of a lack of like literature. ऐसा नहीं है कि discussions बिल्कुल नहीं है, हैं, people have, but then just, yeah, there's just like, overall there should be much more than what already exists.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I know we discussed this briefly earlier as well. However, I still want to kind of, say it here that there is a very clear understanding of how trauma. I mean, we have enough studies, I think, now to talk about how the trauma of, transatlantic slavery has influenced the Black community,
Yes.
in the West, and the trauma of the partition still continues in families, in India and Pakistan and Bangladesh as well. And so, of course, the trauma carries through. The
Yeah.
intergenerational trauma is a very real, um, it manifests in very real decisions in life. I think we don't even recognize how it does, until one
Yeah.
has done a lot of their own self work and really interacted and kind of done that and communicated. And I don't know, it just takes a whole life, I believe, to
Yes.
understand how trauma impacts us. Um, so to completely even not just ignore, actually overlook, like not even have that as part of the understanding of a marginalized community and the way they make their decisions, is actually, it's a disservice to the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
I'm also, it's just almost like I said, it's a work of life. And we need more, like you rightly said, we need more clinical data, because it just becomes more seriously taken,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the
Unfortunately.
sad, unfortunately, exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately. And at the same time, it's like almost every part of this sort of experience and understanding of how trauma has to be incorporated, within the understanding of how policy should be made, within the understanding of how community chooses and wants to operate and wants to contribute.
Yeah.
um, unless we do that, I think it's just a very uphill sort of climb to even
Hmm.
acknowledge the needs, like you said, like that वो अगर उसे objectively देखोगे तो फिर कुछ होगा नहीं उसका.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a math equation. It won't add up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And then you try to fit it into your existing understanding. कि, अरे, it's not making sense, so maybe it is that. Maybe it
Yeah, it is a lot to grapple with on some days. I do agree with you. I feel like there's just so much to be done, and I'm so grateful to you and your work with that. Because you're doing it with that intention of not just producing knowledge, but also creating room for more conversations, also creating the discourse that this shouldn't just remain in a panel session. This shouldn't just be a podcast. This should actually be far more than that. There needs to be a sense of reckoning with the need of a society and the need, and this is not supposedly just for a community. A society can only flourish when every aspect or member of its community feels like their inner life has seen the
Yes.
light.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm really really grateful to you, Emin. I think just listening to you on that panel gave me so much, just so much ease, I must say, that here was someone who was really using her platform to just widen the conversation, make it more accessible, and let everyone listen. I'm so glad. Like, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I just, there's very little space. Very little space right now to have these conversations, and in the way that you want, without censoring yourself. And I'm just really glad you called me on this podcast as well, because I was like, yay, get to be on a podcast which has also had Annie Zaidi and Ghazala Jamil. They're both really, like, I'm huge fans of them. So yeah, but then more than that, yeah, getting to talk about these things, and just you telling me that it did reach you in some way, or it, resonated with you, that's also, I mean, hearing that makes me feel like I should be doing more of this work, and that it's not all in vain, because a lot of times, and I am trying to, talk to and sort of meet more people who think along similar lines and are doing work like that, because isolation may, it can be, there's a lot of hopelessness, and even when you're doing things or writing things, it just becomes like, what is even the point? Because look at the world, what is even the point of having these discussions, again falling into the same thing that you are criticizing. Okay, we need to move beyond these binaries, we will need to do community building and activism that moves beyond this, we need to move out of survival mode. But then it's so hard, because it's having such an impact on our bodies, on our minds in real time. So then when people say that, your work has relevance or your work matters, it's really like, it's like being something being reflected back to you. So yeah, I'm just really glad that you reached out to me and called me.
Thank you. I think the pleasure is all mine. I have one last question for you, Eamon, and we have talked about, like, just mentioned, like, being in a state of survival and understanding the scope of how trauma influences us. And I just want to ask you, like, while we are surviving, I do firmly believe that in some ways we also choose to thrive. We find our own means and mechanisms to find that those spaces of joy and comfort. And I just want to ask, what are your, how do you thrive? And I really firmly hope that you have more and more ways to thrive, but I'd love to hear from you.
Right. So I, and this has been a very recent realization for me, but more and more I'm trying to be more accepting of, feeling that I deserve or I am worthy of the love that I receive from people around me. Because like, होता क्या है कि when you belong to a certain kind of location, I'm not just saying religion, caste, but also gender and a lot of other things, then there's a lot of ways in which you are indirectly and directly trained to hate yourself, and it's not a very, like, conscious process. It happens in the subconscious, and it takes years to get out of that. And you might think, yeah, okay, एक situation हुआ and I'm out of it, and now I'm over that, but then it turns up in different ways, and I just sort of unraveling that and then dealing with that, and trying to take seriously the love that people around me have for me, like my siblings or my husband, who is very he who has extended a lot of grace to the uncomfortable ways sometimes trauma plays out, because that's the thing. It's not always trauma is not just making you a victim. It's also sometimes it comes out in very uncomfortable ways. That's what people don't understand. And it's just dealing with the idea that okay, these things also happen and you're still deserving of love. And then building community is something that I have really like actively paid attention to since a year or so, because again, the isolation that I was talking about, it creates a sort of cynicism fueled depression, and no judgment for that because I've been in that. But when you find other people who are doing similar sort of work, who want to practice their politics in real life as well through ways that resonate with them, whether it's through writing or organizing on ground or like groups or whatever it is, finding more and more people like that and building community instead of just being hopeless, and just reading and writing a lot instead of again being like it doesn't matter who will read this, it doesn't matter if no one reads it even like just to be in touch with my own convictions or what I think of and how I think things should be written about, in terms of my individual self as well as the community. And then just just keeping at it, even if a certain kind of recognition or a certain kind of success is not reaching you, not internalizing the world's discrimination against you, कि intellectual level पे you're thinking कि हाँ ऐसा है stats, Muslim women discriminated in jobs and education ये वो, but आपका नहीं हो रहा है तो आप सोच रहे हो कि there is something wrong with you. That is a disservice to yourself. So more and more just trying to move away from these things. And finally just like chilling with my cat, which is like the best thing ever. Like sometimes when I'll be working, she'll just come and sit on my lap, she'll sleep or she'll sleep beside me, and that's anyone who has a cat knows how restorative and how heavenly that experience is. So yeah, like just like a bunch of these things.
Oh, I love the last part. Cats to the rescue
Yeah.
any day, any time. And I'm so glad that you have a cat, because I'm like, yes, I love people with cats and dogs and everything, but generally I'm like, yeah, cats can just like make you feel alive
Yeah,
without
yeah.
necessarily having those sort of qualities like a dog. Cats are just like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna come and make you feel like I appreciate you as a human.
Yeah,
At
and
my
then
level.
I'll sort of maintain distance also. I'll
Yeah,
give you space as well.
exactly. Exactly. I will give me myself that space. I respect my space so much, and I'm going to respect yours. But
Yeah,
you need these affirmations, so I'm going to come and give them to you.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, cats to the rescue. But thank you so much, Eman. This has been such a beautiful conversation. It has been very enlightening as well. I'm so grateful you took the time, and I can't wait to read everything you're writing, everything you're producing, and I am just excited for everything you're doing in life. And yeah, thank you.
Inshallah, yeah. And I just really loved being here and just talking to you. And there was no reason for me to be as nervous as I was. But yeah, it was just really great. And thank you for making me comfortable enough that I could talk so freely. So yeah.
Thank you so much. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please check out its further notes, which include links to some of Ayman's writings that have been published online. Thank you for listening to Maybe Muslim. I'm Mariam Heather, and we'll be back with another episode in a few weeks' time. Until then, take care, lots of love and gratitude.